Okay, my article was called The Textures and Flavor Memory in Foods, an um, incidental learning experiment. So memory plays an important role in the formation of food expectations, and people gain food expectations based off of previous encounters with different foods that they've had, and that leads to the food that they choose to eat. Um, there's very little scientific attention and experiments on the remembrance of food products and characteristics. But the main question became how accessible and how accurate is incident incidentally acquired and stored information about texture and or flavor characteristics of food products. Um, and they want to give special attention to gender differences since women are more sensitive to odors. And they used 35 women and 34 men that ranged from 19 to 59 in age. They were all employees of a company and they were invited to take part in a study on hunger feelings. And they were told to come to the institution before having breakfast. And so the main three stimuli were a breakfast drink, which was an example of liquids, pate, which was an example of semi-solids, and then a biscuit, which was an example of a solid. And all of this food was prepared at the institution. Um, and then for all three food stimuli, they made four variants for each of the foods that varied in texture, and they tried not to make it vary in flavor, but it was kind of hard. So the only one that didn't vary in flavor was the pate, but the biscuits varied just based off of if they put more fat or just more like starch in it. And then the breakfast drink also differed just based off the thickness that they added or lessened. And so when the participants came in, they started off by rating their hunger feelings. Then they were given breakfast, which was a slice of bread, two for women, three for men, margarine, cheese, and jam, a glass of milk or buttermilk, and the main food stimuli, the breakfast drink, the pate, and the biscuits. Um, and they were given either A or B. So, like, the food was divided up and the participants were randomly assigned to either A or B. A consisted of 16 women and 16 men, while B consisted of 19 women and 18 men. And then after breakfast, they received a timer that rang every hour and a small booklet with questions about their hunger feelings that they wanted them to answer every hour that the timer went off. So participants really thought that this experiment was about their hunger feeling throughout the day, and not about the remembrance. And then at the end of the day, they returned for debriefing in a small taste experiment or recognition experiment. And so they would give them six randomized stimulus for each of the three breakfast items, and they asked them to indicate which one they ate for breakfast. Um, and so for the results, they logged it as hits, which means they said yes to a target, the food that they ate at breakfast. Misses was saying no to a target. False alarm was saying yes to a distractor. And then correct rejection was saying no to a distractor. And then they like turned some of the stuff into Z scores and um, kind of like D equaled hits minus false alarms, while K equaled hits plus false alarms. And so you can see in this table that a lot of the hits are very um, high up in numbers versus the false alarms, which is really good. Um, and yeah, for men and women. And so the memory effects that had to do with the table I just showed you. And it was pretty much just saying that the learned textures and flavors receive higher hits than false alarms. And then the gender effects was that women had more hits and less false alarms for pate, but not biscuits. And men had like higher hits for biscuits. And so distractor discrimination, um, it was the percentage false alarms for the three distractors in each comparison. So for the so like the target was biscuit BA. So you can see that there were a couple hits for there were a couple people that did get distracted by the distractors, put those down. Um, and for BD, you see that no one put down a distractor for BD. Sorry, this is BB. The target was BB, and you could see that no one got duped or distracted by BD. They could really tell the difference between those two. And then that goes for the drinks. Um, Everybody pretty much got duped by those. And then the pate, the same thing. But the biscuit, you can see that no one got duped by BD because everybody knew BD tasted different from BB. And then texture versus flavor effects. This was the recognition indicates D and values of the criteria K in case in which textures alone play a role, and in cases in which both textures are involved. Um, and so pretty much this was just talking about that while texture played a big role, flavor also played a role too. And so flavor was also another reason why why the participants were able to decide which was the fake and which one was the real one. Then in conclusion, people remember much about the food that they have eaten, even without intentionally knowing it. And women remember better than men, like the food textures and flavors. And then it also just said that people remember flavor well as well, even though they tried to not make that a part of the study, it was a part of the study. And so, yeah, they pretty much were able to get what they wanted to out of the study.